Potawatomi,
arts,
culture,
and entertainment.
This is a Pace production.
Put your hands together for Barber. This is Barber for you.
Thank you guys for coming and hearing me talk about the work. I kind of, like Adam said, don't want to spend too much time up here talking about it. I would like to kind of engage you guys as much as possible, just to hear your thoughts, questions about process or questions about whatever. And I'll give you a little quick spiel about me, so maybe to help like kind of provoke some questions for you. The title of the show is Barber Paints People in Middle America. And so it's kind of like a wrap up for me. I got here in 2018. I got to Omaha in 2018 from Detroit, which is where I'm from. The Union for Contemporary Art invited me here to be a part of their residency program in North Omaha. And the first thing I did was create a large landscape painting called Somewhere in Omaha. I was just trying to place myself. The majority of this work was created in my recent studio that I have now, Old Bemis, but these two pieces here was started at my residency at Fontenelle Forest. What I wanted to do was capture the people that I've interacted with since being here in 2018. And this piece here is called Victoria. This piece is called Victoria. This piece here is called Motherhood, but it's based off somebody I know. The other pieces are on the wall. Those are just, I call those people. And I have a goal to make 100 of them. Those are just for me to get used to my process of assemblage, which I'm not going to talk much about. If you have questions about it, I hope you would ask. So forgive me the sporadic and vagueness of this spiel, but that's intentional because I want you guys to ask some questions. I will say that I started off as a figurative painter, painting very representatively. I wanted to get away from that because I wanted to get away from the stereotypes and baggage that people bring to me, enamored with. And so, typical abstract artists, I start with the body in the colors and the composition is all responding to the silhouette and things of that nature. But the body is the starting point, but I wanted to get away from things like bodily features so that you can create your own narrative and create your own relationship with the work and with the pieces. So that being said, yeah, I'm gonna turn it back to you guys. Thoughts on color, process, whatever you want.
Is there any part of the process you find most, I guess, difficult or maybe arduous when working through the problem?
You know, no, not really. I take it all as fun to me. Like it's time to engage with the work. So it's all trying to get to know the person. One thing I do like about this process is that one thing that I enjoy most about this process is that I don't know how it's gonna look when it's finished. Whereas if I am trying to paint you, for instance, I know the end goal is to capture your likeness. But with certain pieces, that's not the case. It's trying to capture a feel and a persona. And so, yeah, and sometimes I have the material in my studio. Other times I have to go for a walk and go looking for stuff that feels like this person that I'm trying to capture. A good example of that is this piece. And this piece, I had like a bunch of broken pieces that I picked up off the street on my walks. But in particular, the bottom piece, none of the pieces that I had worked. And so I had to go out. I didn't have to, but I went out for another walk and I waited to find another piece that fit that. And I actually, like I didn't break that. Like And if you pull that off, you'll see that that shape is white underneath, and it fits that perfectly. And so that happened actually after I supposedly finished the work. I went for a walk and I saw it, picked it up, took it to my studio, took the other one off, and it fit perfectly. So, yeah, so it forces me to be patient. And so if I can surrender to the process, then it's not tenuous, it's not arduous, it's not stressful. So. Hi.
So in a couple of your pieces on the other side, you have a little walnut in the corner of them. And
Oh yeah.
to you, does that represent like maybe a seed, a growth of expecting character, or a sustenance of what they bring to you?
You know, so typically, the material has a lot of significance to the narrative of the work. In these pieces, in particular, I guess this one, not so much. It's there compositionally to like kind of create balance, and so I have this thing where I'm trying to direct the viewer with objects and things of that nature, and so that's kind of what that's there for. This one is there to continue this line of the landscape. My personal interest in seeds is that it relates to fertility. I cannot have kids, so using them, I'm attracted to them for that reason. But in these works, it is there aesthetically. So the cans kind of like mimic. So when I got away from the body, it's like a circle head, arms, and then the rectangle base. And the rectangle base was me trying to say that we are all like game pieces, like pawns, that we are responding. We don't have, we are not creators. We're just responding to creation. So like a chess piece, it doesn't move itself. It needs someone godlike thing to move it. And so that was me challenging like my ego as an artist, that I create. Like, no, I don't. I'm responding to something all the time. And so that is to say, like, I need to be moved. I can't move in and of myself. And so the cans kind of allow, it's a way of embellishing the rectangle. But my interest in them started as a boy in Detroit, just walking to and from school and seeing these cans, beer bottles and beer cans smashed along the way, and really being curious about the life or the actions that took place before it got to the ground. And but I was conflicted with it, partly because at school, so I went to an Afrocentric school, and it taught us all about our culture and who we are. So I knew I knew Harriet Tubman, I knew Elijah McCoy, 6th, 5th grade. I didn't have to go to college for that stuff. But what was funny, we had, along the border, elementary, you got the stuff on the border of the walls, and it was, Cleopatra, Shaka Zulu, or whomever, but it was sponsored by Budweiser. So you'll have all these historical facts about my culture, and then I see this Budweiser thing, right? And I'm like, all right. But then when I walk home, I'm seeing these beer cans, and I'm seeing people who are alcoholics drinking the same thing, but Budweiser. And so it created this like strife, that how can this company who's invested with me, my education about who I am, also be the same company that's killing my neighborhood? You see what I'm saying? And so, and then I would wonder, like, the cans, like, did this person who drunk that can, do they know that? Like, do they know that you're being poisoned, or do they know that I don't know. It just created a lot of questions, and so that created a conversation between me and cans. I recently read this book, Vibrant Matter, by Jane Bennett, and she talks about how material has life in it, and so that brought me back to that moment, and that's how I feel. I feel like these things have life in them, and so it's a way to cheat by using these cans, because I feel like you too may want to have this similar conversation with the can, why that can and this and that and what does it mean. And so also too because it's shiny, and if you can throw something shiny in the painting, you're kind of halfway there. just saying, you know. So yeah.
I was curious about the pink tape, because as a 2D artist, the way we suspend our work, usually you want it to be subtle and almost, magical the way it hangs there. And one of the first things I was drawn to about your work is this loud pink tape. It almost becomes a part of the piece itself. Is there any reason for the pink tape? Is that kind of how you work?
Yeah, it's a lot to it. A lot of this work is about me being honest, and that's why I'm just working on one plane, and I'm using color to push and pull you back and create depth. I like the material doing what it's gonna do, and not me manipulating it. Again, because I'm trying to be in conversation with the material, but I'm also trying to have this like ethical approach with it too, because I kind of feel like there's a life in it, and I don't want to go cut his limbs off if I don't need to. And so so that's part of where the tape comes in. Is that that's why it's still there. But yeah, it's functional as well. So it's a way for me to. I love working on flat surfaces, and so I actually like literally tape the work to the wall. But then I also realized that as an artist, we're responding to color, and when I'm painting this thing, I know that I'm responding to it. So when I take it off the wall, I can't take the tape off, because it's gonna shift the composition. And so it's working twofold. Like it's working as it literally anchors the piece to the wall so that I can work on it. But then after it's done, it's anchoring the composition as well. It's holding its place. It's still doing this thing.
So that tape stays with the work after installation?
After the installation, it stays there. So it's introducing this because I after working on the wall pieces, I kind of see it as a medium. And I was also interested in this loudness and this pinkness because at the time I was also investigating my own toxic masculinity. And so, and it being loud like that, I was like, dude, your toxicity is just as loud and you need to deal with it. And so, it's a reminder in me that it's still there, like regardless of, I'm aware of where it comes from, and I'm aware that like it's still there. And so, I like it for those reasons, if that makes sense. Yes.
I was drawn to the cans as well, and I mean partially because the association I'm bringing to it is being appreciative, because I'm recognizing it as a discarded item likely that was found outside in nature perhaps, and so I'm kind of wondering about your collection method and like whether maybe like environmentalism is playing like a role in your collection. Are you collecting constantly and cataloging these materials in your studio space? Are you only kind of collecting when it's like time to produce a new body of work? Or kind of a multi-layered question, but curious if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do. Great question, and I'm glad you mentioned nature. So part of that was me like trying to honor urban nature as nature. Like I grew up in a city and I was kind of terrified of nature, because even in the forest I thought there were scorpions in it, and so I'm like, there's a scorpion over there. I was like, dude, this is Midwest. So just afraid of it. So like me picking it up and me putting it, in a prominent place, that's that art thing. I want to take something that's not noble, make it noble. So that's there. But the collection process it started off that, that I would pick it up. I would just pick them up. And I was really excited about doing that in Omaha because it was a way for me to connect back to Detroit. So if I saw a can on the ground, I'm picking it up because that reminded me of home, and maybe that whatever that would do. Then I ended up with a lot of cans. And so then I was like, okay, only pick those up that you haven't seen before, that's like local, something like that. And or that has the shape that I'm looking for. Like if it's smashed a certain way or torn or something a certain way that I haven't seen, then I started collecting those. And now I'm at the point that I only collect found objects if it tells me that it wants to come with me. And so I wouldn't have worded it like that out loud until I read Jane Bennett. She gave me permission to do so. But I got to the point where I was like, and I think I used this example before, but it was this lavender ribbon that I know, like I was like, okay, like I gotta have that. And I went to pick it up, but I felt like it was like, I don't want you, it didn't want me or something, I just felt like I was only picking it up because I wanted it and because of the color, you know what I'm saying? And it was just chilling. So it's like, that's rude. You know what I mean? It's like plucking a flower. It's like you need to just appreciate where it's at and let it live, let it work its life cycle, and let it do what it do. So that's how I felt with the ribbon. Maybe I should have picked it up and threw it in the trash, but littering. But I didn't. I just let it stay and I kept it moving. So that's my approach now. And Jane Bennett talks about that, like listening to the objects. And I think it's about frequency. I think she goes further into it. But it's about frequency now. If the magnetic or whatever is connecting, then. So I'm trying not to be one-sided with the material, and that goes back to being honest with the material. I'm just trying to let it do what it do. So I kind of see myself more as an assemblage, like more so than collage. Collage is something where you manipulate material to look like a certain thing, but I'm trying to let the material. I'm trying to let the material do its own thing in the space. So what we're doing is Q&A. So it's like if you have a question about the work or whatever, then you ask it. So just so you know.
I just have a question about around the corner. That piece is far more dimensional than the other ones, and I was curious about like the meaning to that or motive in making it far more, I guess, out from the wall and a little more assemblage to it than with other pieces here.
Let's go take a look. It's a fun piece, but it's also kind of a challenging piece. So the fun part is that I was watching this YouTube series about painters and paintings and stuff like that, and they showed this beautiful painting, and it was gold. It had like three main colors. It was gold leaf, like a Caravaggio, deep black, but it wasn't like Caravaggio. It's just velvety. And then it was a white linen that this model was reclining on. And I just saw those, and it was red. It was like this red pillow or something like that. And I was just, I was really attracted to that piece. And I wanted to use those colors to create a work. And so, but also in that piece, it was this white nude woman in conversation with an angel. So it felt like this was like a Mary moment and about this, purity and things of that nature. And so I wanted to have a conversation about that and like, what is white? Like, and how do white people see white? Like, how do you see your complexion? Because one thing I grew up with was thinking like, dude, I'm not, they call me black, but I'm not black, I'm brown. But I felt like you couldn't change society to tell them to start calling me brown. And then but then with black folks in the 60s, it was like, we're black and I'm proud. And I'm like, okay, then I'll go with black, So this piece is about me challenging how you guys see yourself, like what type of white do you see yourself. So it's called American White. So it's like the longer titles, American White, Strawberry Red, and like Forest Green. So it's kind of like I want you to be in that mindset. And so that is the narrative behind this piece. The assemblage idea was just me wanting to push myself and push myself materially and see if I can have these materials create a conversation by themselves. So you got this pretty, decorative white, which is how I imagine, right? I imagine how white people see themselves. Like if you say, I'm white, then you're associated with being pure white, white as snow, angelic, things of that nature. Whereas when I see white, I'm thinking this complexion. And so I wanted to put those two whites together and see what happens and call it American White and see if white people would make that connection or make some type of connection between peach and white. And then I got like the stuff in there to kind of go with what I had in my head. But it was just an opportunity to put this piece of paper with this fabric and see what happens.
So you said that those paintings did represent specific people you knew. How about those? Do those, or are they the concept of people or just actual people you know?
So some of them are, but mostly not. These are like conglomerates, these people, like, I'm thinking about them from beginning to end, So those are about, so I gave myself a challenge, right? So I created this language of circle heads and rectangles and things of that nature. And I know they're gendered. I know the genders. And they also are separated. They also have class too. There's that. But as far as ethnicity, that's not there. And so I created this world for myself, and I was able to create paintings in that world. But I wanted my world to be able to respond to the real world. And so I gave myself a challenge to, hey, let me choose someone I know and see if I can put them in my world, and then see if people in their world can say, oh, that is, Victoria, that is that person, I'm in love with like paint and art history. And so I have this love-hate relationship with it actually. And so it's kind of why I moved to paper, so that I could just not have to deal with the canvas. Canvas is so loaded. But I respect what they do and all that good stuff. And so to make my job easier, I wanted to start with a composition that was already proven. And so this composition is based off of Gustav Klimt's Dancer. I think it's Dancer number 3 or something, I don't know, but Dancer. And so it was a way for me to cheat to respond to, like, create a landscape for it as well. So that's why it's more in depth, because I'm actually, well, let me take that back. The figure is based off Gustav Klimt's Dancer. This landscape aspect is actually Neil Woods and stuff like that. Like that tree, this tree is when we had the flood, and I pulled that tree out of that. But I was beholden to actually creating to creating depth, because I was constantly thinking about Gustav Dancer. This piece here, Victoria is responding to William Bouguereau, yeah, the French guy. He has, it's called a Return of Spring, and so yeah. Again, I was responding to his foliage, his angels, and things of that nature. So it was a way for me to ground my world, because my world is so flat and so honest and so upfront. I'm not really interested. Well, I am interested, but yeah, the goal was to kind of try to respond to nature and reality as much as possible. So I used their composition to do so. So that's why this is a bit more intense or in depth, because I wanted to break my own little patterns with things. So the last piece over there is a self-portrait, which also has, I think it's kind of, it has composition and depth to it, but I didn't base it off any other painter. That's just mine. And so I'm thinking maybe that I did enough studying by looking at Gustave and William Bouguereau that I was able to kind of accomplish it in that one as well. But you guys be the judge of that, like if it looks like a landscape or not. Maybe it's too landscapey. That's what I was kind of worried about with that one.
I guess I was also thinking about, like, these images have, there's a lot more small parts in them. There's a lot more complexity visually in the image, and on the 100 people on the other side, each one is just a few elements that accomplish the portrait. I'm going to say more efficiently, but without any editorial content there. It's no judgment, it's just more efficient because it's fewer parts.
Yes. So, I think so I think what the question is, like, how come, why so much material in this versus the other pieces? Is that what you're asking?
Material in so many different areas,
intricates,
color, different parts, and different things interacting.
Because I'm actually beholden to, like, I'm actually trying to articulate, say, ground or landscape or water, or I'm actually trying to, with this piece, I was really intent on trying to create a heaviness to the figure. I wanted the figure to feel very heavy. And so, and this was also responding to like a quilt. So this was based off a motto, and she was wrapped up in blankets. And so that's where all the different patchwork comes in at. So I'm responding to that. But I also wanted this piece to feel heavy because I feel like motherhood is a task that I don't know about, that I'm unaware of. And so, and it's a task, and it comes, it's, baggage and all those different things. And so, and I was trying to get to know, like, my mom with this work. And when I started this, when I was working on this, and I said this before maybe, but like, it helped me to, for the first time in my life, I was able to see my mom as a human being, like a real person. She wasn't the person in my life who's supposed to know everything and get it all right. And then I got to realize that her job was tough as hell. And I wasn't aware of it, and also didn't appreciate it. And so now as an adult, like, I'm amazed by it. But anyway, so I wanted this piece to feel heavy, and I wanted, like, the head to kind of be above this intricate, like, pattern as much as possible, but the piece is just supposed to feel heavy. And I thought the best way to do that is to add a lot to it. But I didn't want the viewer to just stay in one place. So I felt it was my task to make it heavy here, but also give you room to breathe in other places. So that's why it's concentrated. That's why I cut things smaller and smaller as much as possible to make it feel busy. Because busy can feel heavy, right? If you have a busy day, by the end of it, you're like, I just need to. So I wanted to make it busy to create the connotation of heavy, life is heavy, task is heavy, things like that. If I was to be completely honest about this one, then I would say I was responding to the painting.
I'm kind of curious about the tools that you use, and like whether you find like a preference for more tactile means of material manipulation, whether that's like tearing a material or crumpling it or something, or versus, I mean, just has a different experience than using a knife or scissors or something like that. Can you kind of talk about how those relate to your working process?
Yeah. So immediately after college, I was working at Lowe's in the paint department, and like with anybody fresh out of college, you like, okay, I got to prove my worth, and not only do I got to prove my worth, I'm not the same as everybody else. And so being a painter, going to school for painting and working at Lowe's, but also seeing these painters who didn't go to school and was doing really well at their job, and also learning about latex paint in that world, the blue collar, I just found a relationship with it and really found an excuse to be humble and with my degree or whatever. And then it reminded me like where I came from. Like I come from blue collar, low class. And so at one point I was just using like really rough material. The pieces didn't last long. But then I knew that I wanted to sell these things. And so I better start using at least archival means to assemblage this work together. But I haven't let go of tissue paper. I'm still stuck on using that. And I know it's gonna die. But I like that part, that it's gonna die. And that's my giving a finger to fine art in the sense that these Leonardos, these very beautiful, important Dutch paintings or whatever paintings are on this canvas that's supposed to last forever, they're constantly being reworked and restored. And I'm like, dude, we all die. It's okay. And I think the Western society has a problem with death. And I think it creates so much stress for our life that we don't know how to thrive because we're constantly trying to survive. And sometimes in situations, you're not meant to survive it. You're meant to be hurt by it. You're meant to fall to the ground. You're meant to cry and bawl out and be ashamed and be embarrassed because there's life on the other side of it. But we're so afraid of dying to ourselves that we never get there, and thus we don't grow. And so me using material that I know is gonna die and possibly embarrass me later in life is the practice of letting go.
Well, I always believe that, talking about your art kind of lays yourself bare to everyone, and we all stare at you for a long time and expect answers. So please put your hands together for Barber for letting us into his world. So,